Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Randy, and one phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning finally forced me to face what I've been refusing to see for months. For a long time, I let my girlfriend take advantage of me because I loved her and truly believed we were building a future together. But her decision slowly eroded that future until there was nothing left. That late-night call wasn't the start of everything falling apart. It was simply the final push. The cracks had existed for a long time. When you're in love, though, you justify things. You give second chances, then third chances, until you lose track of how many you've given. This is a story of how I finally stopped making excuses and started standing up for myself, even though it meant losing the relationship I once thought I wanted. When I met Madison about 1.5 years ago, everything felt amazing. She was energetic, spontaneous, and always excited to try new things. Being with her made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. We went on trips, explored new places, and lived freely. For the first time in my life, I actually pictured marriage. I'd never been the kind of guy who thought about weddings or kids, but with Madison, those thoughts came naturally. It scared me how much I wanted that future, but it also felt right. Like I'd finally found the person I was meant to be with. But there was one problem that never went away. Madison loved going out, and not just occasionally. She went out multiple nights every single week. Sometimes it was Tuesday nights, sometimes Wednesdays because someone was celebrating or there was a special event. At first, I tried to ignore it. I didn't want to be controlling or tell her how to live her life. I told myself I should trust her and be supportive, but as time passed, it became impossible to overlook. The clubbing increased, and so did the consequences. We argued constantly about it. I worried about her safety, about her being drunk in unpredictable places several nights a week. I worried about her health and what that lifestyle was doing to her body. One Tuesday night, she went out again, and the next morning she was supposed to work. She was so hungover she could barely function. Her employer had already warned her before, and that day they fired her. Losing her job changed everything. Suddenly, she didn't have her own income anymore, and began relying on me for things she should have been handling herself. After she got fired, she promised she'd slow down and said she'd learned her lesson. I believed her, but a week later, she was right back at another club. I tried talking to her seriously about our future, where we were going and what we were building, but she brushed me off. She said I was being too intense and accused me of ruining her fun while she was still young. Another time, she outright lied. She told me she was staying in with friends, but I later found out she'd been at a bar instead. Every argument followed the same pattern. I'd explain how I felt. She'd accuse me of trying to control her. We'd fight. She'd cry, apologize, promise to change, and 2 weeks later, we'd be right back where we started. It was exhausting. I constantly questioned myself. Was I being unreasonable? Was I expecting too much? Or was I actually being controlling like she claimed? I spent countless nights wondering if I could really marry someone whose priorities were so different from mine. I loved Madison. When she wasn't caught up in all of this, she was funny, kind, and beautiful. But I couldn't ignore what was right in front of me. It felt like a sign of something deeper. Immaturity, irresponsibility, or simply wanting different lives. I started pulling back emotionally because every broken promise hurt. I had been looking at engagement rings for months, but I never bought one. The future I imagined stopped feeling real and started feeling like a fantasy. A few days before everything collapsed, we had our biggest argument yet. I told her I couldn't keep doing this. I admitted that I wanted to marry her, that I'd seriously considered proposing, but her constant clubbing and broken promises made me doubt everything. I told her I needed real change, not words, but actions, before we could move forward. At first, she played the victim. When she realized I wasn't backing down, she promised she'd cut back, focus on us, and take her life seriously. I wanted to believe her, but I'd heard it all before. I told her I needed proof, not promises. Then came Thursday night. I just finished a double shift and was exhausted. Earlier, Madison texted me saying she was going out with friends. My stomach dropped. It hadn't even been 2 weeks since our conversation. I called her immediately and reminded her of everything we'd discussed. She got defensive and said she was just hanging out, that I was trying to control her again. We argued until she said she was going anyway and hung up. In that moment, something inside me gave up. I realized she was never going to change. I decided I'd end things the next day. I went to bed heartbroken, but strangely relieved, like a decision had finally been made for me. At 3:17 a.m., my phone rang. It was Madison. The music in the background was loud, and she was yelling. She told me they'd been partying all night, and when it was time to pay, everyone's cards declined. The bill was $2,000, and the club wouldn't let them leave. She demanded I send the money immediately. I felt calm, completely calm. This was the proof I needed. I told her, "Call your dad." She lost it, calling me cruel and heartless. I repeated myself. She screamed at me, insulted me, and accused me of never loving her. I told her the truth, that I couldn't love someone who didn't respect me or our relationship. I ended it right there, hung up, turned off my phone, and went back to bed. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages from Madison and her friends, everyone. Then I saw a voicemail from an unknown number. It was a police officer. Madison and her friends had been arrested. She'd caused a scene, pushed an officer, and was charged. The officer asked if I'd post bail. I said no and asked to be removed as her emergency contact. Later, her father called screaming at me. I calmly explained everything. When I finished, he went silent and hung up. He bailed her out later that day, but made her sit in jail for hours first. Madison texted me once after she got out, half apology, half blame. I sent one final message, telling her she chose clubbing over our relationship and that I couldn't be part of her life anymore. Then I blocked her everywhere. In the weeks that followed, she took a plea deal and ended up on probation. Friends were divided on whether I did the right thing. Eventually, I stopped caring. The hardest part wasn't losing her. It was losing the future I thought we'd have. Whenever I doubt my decision, I think back to that 3 a.m. call, and I know I made the right choice. What I learned is simple. Words mean nothing without actions. I wasn't in love with who Madison was. I was in love with who I hoped she'd become. And you can't build a life on potential. At some point, you have to choose yourself. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone who needs to hear it.